In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the lores of magic. I'm going to start with the Big Waagh. The Big Waagh is available to an orc shaman, or shaman, and the first spell here is Foot of Gork. You can see, pretty neat that they included this, that you can see what the spell does. A giant orc god materializes and stomps down on the battlefield. It has a significant casting time, and you have to sort of guess where enemies are going to be. Probably the best way to use this spell is to either break up a charge, stop the enemy from charging, or once the enemy is engaged, you can use the spell to hit them because they won't be able to disengage safely. Now there's also an upgraded version. You get the upgraded version of the spell by just double clicking when you want to cast the spell. It costs 19 and it does increase damage. However, it increases the miscast chance. If you miscast, you're going to damage your own shaman. So if your shaman is at high health, it can potentially be worth it. However, it's also very, very risky because you're doing damage to your own fellow there. Then we have Here We Go, and that over an area increases melee attack by a massive 58. That will max out the chance to hit for a lot of orc units. It costs 11 power, which is quite significant. It has long range and pretty long duration. So in critical engagements where you need to get a lot of hits in on the charge when your damage is the highest, it can be useful. However, on the charge your melee attack is also very high, so it's a bit of an iffy ability. It's not something I like to use a lot. Here we have a spell that is very nice, the Fists of Gork. Plus 22% weapon damage and plus 36 melee defense, 34 melee attack for only 8 mana. That is a pretty good spell. Once your boys have reached the enemy and they're engaged, getting plus 22% weapon damage and getting hit a lot less and hitting a lot more, that can be worth it because you are getting a lot of damage potentially back for the amount of power you're using. Then we have Brainburster, and you can also upgrade Brainburster to where it has 200 range. So for only 3 more mana, you get 125 more range, which causes an explosion. You can see here. It doesn't necessarily do massive amounts of damage, but it's a fairly reliable spell. And you can target ground with it and use it to disrupt an enemy unit. It works better against lighter foes. They go flying. Something fierce. Then we have Edbutt. You can see that the Big Waagh is sort of geared towards damage. If you upgrade the spell, it does increased damage. Can be a bit hard to use because it's a cone-shaped attack. If you hit well, like in the flank of a unit, and ideally this spell would be used in the flank of engaged units. It will knock them down, it will knock them back, it will do damage, but it's fairly expensive and it can be very easy to miss. You need a direct line of sight for this to work. Then you have the Gaze of Mork, your basic magical missile. If you upgrade it, it gets a massive 400 range. It has poor penetration, it's strong versus a single target, yada yada. Just a standard magical missile. But you need to have a clear line of sight, and anything that obstructs the spell is going to make it harder to cast. But with 400 range, it can be exceptionally useful for just removing the last bit of health from an enemy lord or hero that's already taken a lot of damage. So the Big Waagh can be very powerful. It can be powerful for keeping light wizards at bay. People won't expect a 400 range magical missile to hit them, and some of the time you'll see people get hit by the Gaze of Gork, the light wizard drops crazy health, and then they start being a lot more careful about how they use their light wizard. And of course it also gives the light wizard another target. So if you have an orc shaman, it might give Asag the Slaughterer, or whichever other orc or goblin lord general you're using, it might give them a bit of respite from the magical missiles from the Night Wizard. So you're bringing the Big Waagh when you want to increase the damage output of your boys, or when you want to have magical damage towards enemy targets. For example, Cairn Wraiths or Hex Wraiths, if you want to take care of them reliably. Gaze of Mork, Headbutt, Brainbuster can actually be quite useful against them. Also, when you're engaged in huge blobs, the Fists of Gork, 22% weapon damage. When you multiply that by hundreds and hundreds of orcs, it becomes a lot more damaging than the damage from a single magical missile. So Fists of Gork, that's one of the spells that can be used to turn battles. Strength and Honor.